To secure your financial future in real estate, hitting one specific vital milestone changes the game, accumulating $100,000 in usable property equity. Reaching that exact number provides options that are otherwise impossible. It creates an absolute safety net against financial emergencies, provides the deposit for a second property, and forms the foundation for accelerated long-term wealth building. The problem is how most people try to reach it. The average buyer operates under a dangerous misconception, believing that 6 figures of equity requires paying down a mortgage for a decade or waiting for a lucky break in the market. Relying on time and hope is a high-risk strategy today. We are looking at peak on affordability, the constant threat of negative equity, and fluctuating interest rates dictated entirely by institutions far outside your control. Top mortgage brokers and strategic investors take a completely different approach. They do not passively wait for the market to grow. They actively manufacture that growth themselves. $100,000 in equity is the guaranteed mathematical output of a 3-lever formula: strategic purchase, targeted upgrade, and optimized leverage. Let's break down how to pull them. Real estate profit originates at the point of purchase. By the time you reach the sale, the total gain has already been determined by the specific price and location you secured on day one. To protect that profit, you have to ruthlessly eliminate the 90% of properties on the market that function as literal money pits, offering zero or even negative growth potential. You bypass those traps by using the sister suburb strategy. It is the most reliable method for identifying undervalued assets that have predictable, guaranteed future growth. This map illustrates how the strategy works. In the center, colored in red, is a high-profile, highly valued boom suburb. The green ring surrounding it represents the sister suburbs, adjacent neighborhoods that are significantly cheaper to buy into. When millions of dollars in infrastructure money pour into that central boom area, the property values inevitably ripple outward. The financial energy has to go somewhere, and it spills directly over into those adjacent green zones. We can see this happening right now with the massive infrastructure zones being built for the Brisbane 2032 Olympics. The central hubs are pricing people out, but the neighboring streets are catching the financial updraft. Buying in a sister suburb artificially accelerates your initial equity baseline. You capture the premier growth of a booming area without paying the premier price tag up front. Once you finally secure that undervalued asset, you move to the second lever, forcing the property's appreciation upward. This is where average homeowners make a massive $20,000 mistake. They overcapitalize on purely aesthetic renovations, expensive tiles, luxury tapware, and trendy paint colors. Banks and valuers heavily discount these subjective choices. A shiny new kitchen benchtop might look great on Instagram, but it does very little to change the hard numbers in a bank's valuation algorithm. This chart compares the financial return of different property upgrades. Notice the massive difference between the low return of aesthetic finishes and the high yield generated by structural changes, like adding a bedroom or improving the functional layout. That gap exists because a bank's valuation model relies heavily on a property's potential rental yield, rather than just looking at recent neighborhood sales. Extra bedrooms and functional space mean higher rent. Every dollar of your renovation budget must be spent manipulating that bank valuation algorithm. You upgrade the physical footprint to increase yield, completely ignoring your own personal taste. The final lever is the system itself. You have to manipulate the hidden rules of institutional lending and government policy to optimize your debt. For first-time buyers, the biggest killer of early equity is lender's mortgage insurance, or LMI. Paying this fee completely drains the starting capital you need to get ahead. By utilizing government policies like the First Home Guarantee Scheme, you can legally bypass LMI entirely, even with a minimal deposit. Using this scheme keeps tens of thousands of dollars in your pocket. That retained cash is exactly what you deploy to fund those high-yield structural renovations we just talked about. But creating the equity is only half the battle. When you go back to the bank to release those funds, they will rigorously stress test your income and debt profile against their internal criteria. Remember, equity is totally useless on paper. Your high valuation means nothing unless you have engineered your financial profile to precisely meet the bank's strict release rules. When you stack these 3 levers, they form a cohesive financial engine: the sister suburb purchase, The LMI savings and the targeted renovations work together to push you directly across that $100,000 threshold. Equity functions best as a raw material for future growth. While many homeowners treat it as a static milestone, its real value lies in being aggressively deployed into new assets. This flowchart breaks down a process known as debt recycling. You extract the equity from property A, use it as the cash deposit for property B, and use the rental income from property B to aggressively pay down your original debt. This continuous cycle of extracting and redeploying capital is exactly how wealthy investors compound their portfolios and pull rapidly ahead of average buyers. They actively engineer their net worth, leaving behind the passive buyers who are still sitting in their living rooms, waiting for a market boom to save them. The real estate market is a machine. Stop treating it like a lottery. Start understanding the gears and manufacture wealth on demand.